Welcome everyone to this reasoning today, Rastafari reasoning with Samuel Time Williams, the son of Count Ossie, legendary Count Ossie and leader of Mystic Revelation of Rastafari. This is a Rastafari reasoning in the reasoning series of the Rastafari reasonings on Africa and historical perspective research project at the Department of African Studies, University of Vienna, Austria. We are very happy to welcome you all today to this reasoning, very interesting reasoning about Rastafari history and past, present, and future surrounding Count Ossie and the mystic revelation of Rastafari. And we are, of course, very happy to welcome you today, Brother Time, Samuel Williams, to join us for this reasoning and to share great insights on these topics with us. We're very happy to have you with us. And we would already ask you to yes, welcome please our audience and open us up with a prayer for this reasoning session. Give thanks.
Yeah, give thanks for life and all its many blessings. Greetings in the name of His Imperial Majesty and Empress Menen. Rastafari live. I do say greetings from this Rastafari brethren, Dominik Island is former slave plantation isle, Jamaica. As the island know, Jamaica is an island in the Caribbean. It's called Caribbean because we as Africans, we were carried beyond our borders. With that I say, behold how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in love and unity. It is like the cohesive force that binds all events to make our life purposeful. Give thanks.
Yes, give thanks for a time for this ilaful opening words. And we would like to make best of the time that we have here
Yes,
in this reasoning and start right into the reasoning of the history of Count Ossie. So Helena Lee in her book was writing that Count Ossie was born in 1927 and came from St. Thomas and then came into the city. You said you told me you were 9 years old in 1966 when His Majesty visited Jamaica. So that means you were born around 1957. So that means there was a time before you were born, of course, but I guess you heard many stories about the brethrens, from the brethrens of Count Ossie and from himself, of course, about his very early time. Can you share with us about the very early time of Count Ossie, how he came into the city, how he came into Rastafari drumming and the whole history of the drumming, and of course into Rastafari? Give thanks.
Yeah, blessings again. Well, Count Ossie, as you have already heard, was born in St. Thomas. You know, he migrated to Kingston. I wasn't around, so I don't quite sure of the timing, you know, but it's somewhere in the early 40s that he came to Kingston and was down by Slipdock Road. He has always have a gathering of brethren, so you know, he went to West Kingston to get the best herbs, you know, because, you know, herbs is a part of the sacramental, you know, manifestation of what Rastafari do. So being that he went there, he met this brother named Job. They always play burro drums in West Kingston. He met the brother Job, and that's where he got the interest. But earlier on, while he was in St. Thomas, he used to be with the Boy Scout playing drums there. You know, so listening to Kumina and all of that. So coming to Kingston, he met Brother Job, and that's where he learned about burro drumming, which later becomes his signature, Nyabingi. You know, so he was down in the gully bank there in Slipdock Road, and my mother now, she's the beneficiary of one of the poor relief house in 1950, in the 50s when Hurricane, I think Charlie came, you know, so he met her and he moved from the gully to here where I'm at right now, 32 Adastra Road, Kingston too. And you know, as me say, I always have a following. The influence from West, he brought it here. Brother Job is the one that bought him a first set of drums. You know, because before that, I heard stories of them playing on cheese pan. I don't know if you know what a cheese pan is, but it's one of them round tinning pan that I heard the story that he played until the bottom of it fell out. You know, so that's where that's where I get some info from. You know.
And so in the literature, we often read about a certain divide between West Kingston and East Kingston in the early Rastafari movement, and then in later developments. But then when we look at the biography of Count Ossie, actually, as you said, Slipdog Road was already East Kingston, and he was living there. And then he was frequently going to West Kingston, to the Dungle, Salt Lane, where he, as you would say, was grounding with brethren like Brother Job. How do you see that development? Was there actually such a divide between East and West? And if so, what was the difference in the Rastafari overstanding from East to West? Or would you say this is maybe something that you did not see as something important?
It wasn't significant in terms of divide. It wasn't a significant divide. See, I am still not wearing locks. Why? Because I represent the East Kingston Rastaman them, where they were mostly Comsom Rastaman. Samuel Clayton, Douglas Mack, Fillmore Alvaranga, Moses Nelson, my father, Count Ossie. All of these brethren was brethren that wasn't wearing any locks. They had beard and no locks. So if there is any divide, that's where. But the unity was always there, and the respect was also always there. So it wasn't a significant divide, you know, because on the second fact-finding mission, Martin Planner, which was a dreadlock Rasta, went with Samuel Clayton, Douglas Mack, Fillmore, and Baranga on the second fact-finding trip to Ethiopia. The first fact-finding trip to Ethiopia in 1963 consisted of Samuel Clayton, Douglas Mack, and Fillmore Alvaranga. They went to the palace in Addis Ababa uninvited. And I think they fulfill a scripture in the Bible when it said white robes was given unto each and every one of them. And they were even asked to stay a little while longer. Because they went to Addis Ababa uninvited, and they stood there for 6 months. And that footage that you sent me, you saw Brother Sam Clayton wearing a white robe. That was the opening of our community center. He was wearing a white robe. That's the robe that His Majesty gave unto the three of them. And they cherished that robe. You know, in 1966, now when he came, I can remember the preparation from this yard, you know. As you know, the SS Jesus of Lubeck was the ship that brought slaves from Africa to the West Indies, given by Queen Elizabeth I. So what they did, they replica a symbolic type ship like that, wanting to go back to Africa. And that's the ship that they met His Majesty in, because they as Rastas always wanted to return to Kit and King. I know the word repatriation before I know what repatriation meant, because I have always heard of repatriation until I grew up big enough to know what repatriation means. Based on the fact that they, you know, I've never seen a more outpoured of Rastafarians than that day. I was 9 years old, as you had mentioned earlier. And I remember that day until this day, because I remember seeing the elements changing. Not quite sure if it was raining first and then it came sunny, or it was sunny first and then it becomes raining. But I know those two elements came. And when His Majesty came in all of his glory, I saw a little pup, I think it's a little dog, ran out of the plane. But being on the shouting and the chant, you know, it seems as if the dog was frightened. So he ran back into the plane and then he came out back later on. You know, so that's my vivid memory of that visit that day. You know, we also went to Montego Bay straight from there. You know, and you know, as a little youth, I fell asleep maybe in the midnight hour somewhere around there. You know, but then
Yes,
the
give
concept
thanks.
of him playing my father Count Ossie and his group, it was Count Ossie and the African drums then. And they played at King's House for him. And each one of the brethren, Sam Clayton, Douglas Mack, Fillmore Alvaranga, Mortimer Planner, they were given a token, which was a gold copper coin from His Majesty with His Majesty head on it. And them brethren cherished that thing, man. You know, they cherished it.
Yes, give thanks. And even before there was direct connection to the African continent, before the missions to Africa and before His Majesty visited in 1966, how was, for example, the Jamaica Journal in an article about Count Ossie called him a son of Africa. And for example, another Rastafari elder, Chabones, in his book, One Love Rastafari, which is basically memoirs, he was writing that whenever he also wrote about witnessing actually Count Ossie and other early drummers drumming, and he said, for example, that Count Ossie was also one of the drummers at the 1958 Buckawall Convention. So that was a Dungle, Buckawall, East West Kingston convention, and so that would also again, as you said, kind of bridge that divide between East and West. But when he heard them drum sometimes, Rastafari elder Chabon said that when they meet and they drum, all Rasta know that the music cork and is bound to reach Zion along with everyone at the groundation. Maybe you can explain a bit about groundation, what groundation is, and what it means when somebody who heard them drum at that time would say that they took all of them to Zion just through the drumming, even before there was literal or physical contact with Africa, even before the missions to Africa. What was the importance of Africa and the drumming, and how was the connection to that at that time? What you heard about that?
Well, as you know, the repatriation is always on the mind of the brethren. I have never known a time when the brethren never think about going back to Africa. So the drumming is always something that transcends sending the brethren into that scope, wanting to go back to Africa. Because I can remember songs like Africa, we want to go, open the gate, make we repatriate. You know, Zion is our father's home. You know, and all of these songs is just yearning to go back to Africa, which I know the Rastaman them, they open the gate of Black awareness of where I and I come from as dark-skinned people. You know, Africa is where the old brethren, and it pains my heart presently to see brethren like Mortimer Planner, Fillmore Alvaranga, and those patriots, those pioneer Rastafarians, you know, passing of the physical flesh. I know individually, any one of them could have just bought themselves a ticket and go back to Africa. But they didn't want it that way. They wanted an organized way of boat going back to Africa. Something similar to the Jews them in terms of repatriation, you know? So the yearning has never stopped. The bridge with East and West was of one accord when it comes down to back to Africa and repatriation.
And was this what attracted Count Ossie to Rastafari? Because it is, I guess, a kind of a bit of a far away from 9 Mile Boy Scout band where Count Ossie first was drumming, and then to West Kingston, the Dungle Salt Lane, speaking about back to Africa in a very serious sense. Was that attracting Count Ossie to Rastafari, and how was Count Ossie teaching Rastafari, as you remember, maybe also as a small boy? What was the teachings of Rastafari that was very central, and how was it taught at that time?
As I you know, the brethren in West Kingston, when he went to West Kingston, that's where he got most of the concept. And as I truly said in the earlier, and he has always been have a following. He's always a leader in his own right, and there's always brethren around him. When Marcus Garvey said in the early 30s, look to the east for the coming of the Black King. That is what gives the concept, when His Majesty got crowned, that is what gives the whole of the brethren them the concept to look to the king, Rastafari. You know, so that's where most of the brethren, you know, start gathering themselves and start, you know, looking back to the traditional way of how they live and how they do things. You know, definitely.
So for them it was basically just very a natural, traditional way of doing things. Even when it comes to the religious aspect, for example, in one interview, Fillmore Alvaranga said that, for example, Leonard Howell did not bring a religion. He just brought the truth that a man named Rastafari was crowned King of Kings in Addis Ababa in 1930. So was it like, although most of the Jamaican society did not cite it the same way, but for them it was just a natural truth? Was it, or was it something that was very much religious? Because on the other hand, there was also a lot of Bible quoting and a lot of Bible identifying, of course, and also in the chants and so on. How was that coming in terms of biblical fulfillment and philosophy?
The biblical fulfillment is just what it is. Because in John, when there wasn't anyone worthy enough to open the book and reveal the 7 seals thereof, a voice shouted from the heavens saying, fret not, the kings of kings and the lords of lords, the conquering lion of the tribe of Judah is here. So that's the biblical manifestation of His Imperial Majesty.
So it was just from their basically everyday life that they were living. They then just saw the fulfillment of this when Rastafari was crowned in Ethiopia.
Yes, as it is a fulfillment of the Bible, because the Bible is always a part of, remember, you know, His Majesty saying, you know, the Bible is his only hope. And these brethren, you have some of the brethren them from the camp, them read the Bible from back to front, including Fillmore Alvaranga. They know the Bible and could quote it from back to front. So they pick different parts to emulate with the crowning of His Imperial Majesty. So that's when them come and say, oh, this is a true and living God. This is the true and living King. Because they put Bible verse into perspective. You know, and then them always, the Bible is never out of the reasoning.
Mm-hmm. And when you say they put it into perspective, because some of the literature says Jamaica has the most churches in the world. So Bible and Christianity was very present in Jamaica. So when you say they were putting it into perspective, what does that mean, and why, how was it different, and how was it attracting maybe youths like yourself more than the other Bible interpretations that were going around in Jamaica?
You see, when the reasoning, there's always reasoning on the camp. There's never a time when there is never reasoning. The influence comes straight from the Bible itself, because it is written in mystic symbols and parables. So when the brethren them read about, for instance, as I quote in John, of the crowning of there is no other one that has been crowned King of Kings and Lord of Lords, conquering Lion of the tribe of Judah, and the elect of God, the light of this world. We in Jamaica say the voice of the people is the voice of God. And 72 different nations bow down at the time and call His Majesty Kings of Kings and Lords of Lords. So that's where all Rastaman get his vision, his aspiration, and his dream from, in terms of His Majesty being the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords.
Mm.
You know, definitely,
and
without any apology.
And growing up in Jamaica at that time, of course, at this very important Rastafari camp, first 32 Adastra Road and then Glasspole Avenue, which was then the Count Ossie Community Center, where you were surrounded by this Rastafari philosophy. How was it for you growing up in Jamaica? What was the communities around, you know, like in school, or like when you saw other communities outside of the Rastafari communities? Was there like some kind of discrimination, or was there disagreement? And how could you understand that they would see it differently? For example, Rastafari would identify very strong as Africans and with Africa, and other Jamaicans maybe less. How do you remember that that experience of living Rastafari in Jamaica among other communities outside of Rastafari?
Well, as you know, Rastafarian is never a religion that was accepted. That's right off the bat. You know that. Rastafari never been accepted in a Jamaica. Even now, them used to call Rasta dirty Rasta man, black heart man, and all of this. So there is never a time that it is accepted. I remember brethren get kicked out of their home and they come right here. Because them father and them mother say, if you turn dirty Rasta, you can't stay in the house. And that's where, as I said, my father have a gathering, because he was so accepting that anyone can forward. Once you not have nowhere to go, you can come, you can, you know. And there's also a song that we sing, leave my home and family to travel with the God of love. You know, I think you know that song well. Leave my home and family to travel with the God of love. Because at the time, it wasn't accepted, none at all. So for the influence, you know, for me personally, I love the fact that Rastafari come with a message of peace and love. I am my brother's keeper. You know, respect the female. I think right now, if the philosophy of Rastafari, ones and ones in Jamaica did they live there. Right now, we wouldn't be into the turmoil where we're into right now, because I would have been my brother's keeper. I would have learned to respect my sister. Even health-wise, when we said no salt and less sugar, them would have said, oh, them crazy. But now you have lots of people now realizing that less salt and less sugar is the healthy way to go. So the teachings of Rastafari is what actually should have been taught in school.
And is it now, you say still people say Dottie Rastaman and so on. So you see, do you see some betterment now after decades, or still the same, or how you see it?
I see betterment, man. It's more acceptable now than ever. And thank Jah to people like Count Ossie, Bob Marley, Jacob Miller. You know, there's so much of the society that them son becomes Rastafarian that they know have to start looking at themselves to see what is wrong from what is right. You know, because it's more accepting now. At one point, you know, I remember going into a pool, and when you're going to the pool with locks, everybody come out of the pool. You know, you go up on a bus and, you know, you have to go out of the back of the bus. You know, so for now, it's far more accepting in the fact where they must see it as a religion, they must see it as a way of life. And it is well accepted within, you know, the society. I went to a Rotterdam festival in Italy, and I could not, I never dreamed say so much Rastafarian there at Italy. Pope, Rome. Huh?
Yes.
When I look in a Rome, I see so much, you know, and it is said that I shall become one of you, so your children and children is the ones that accept and take onto the faith. So ones and ones have to really look within themselves now and say, if it's even the question, who are these people? Rastafari live.
Yes, give thanks. And I just saw right now Rasulio from Italy has joined us in the Zoom, and he's the organizer for the House of Rastafari at Rotterdam Sunsplash. So I'm sure he's happy to hear that. So from when you see Rastafari now all around the world, as you said, you see it as a kind of fulfillment, or from was it surprising to you to see so much Rastafari, because it was not just in Italy, you were touring the whole world with Mystic Revelation of Rastafari.
Exactly.
How you see that now, Rastafari in the world globally?
Globally, Rastafari is returning, you know, it's just like the suns. The river shall take back its course. That's a profound statement. The river shall take back its course. Rastafari have to take back its rightful place within society, the world, and all its origin. Because the voice of the people is the voice of God.
Yes,
you
sir.
know.
Give
So
thanks.
remember this statement, I will bring my sons and daughters from across the earth. So this is what is happening. My sons and my daughters are coming from all across the earth. Because Mama Africa is always calling. You know.
Yes. Yes, give thanks. And so when it comes to the acceptance of Rastafari, and especially back in the day when there was much less acceptance, do you know about now specifically about Count Ossie, how it was with his family? In his family, was it accepted? Did he have problems with his parents and his family, or maybe your mother's family? How was that back then? Was that a problem?
Count as his mother is an ardent Christian. Ironically, she worship her Christ. She love her Jesus Christ. But you know, I have never heard she said one bad word about her son. You know, you see, a lot of people know, you know, a lot of people know the truth. Just like Garnet Silk said, Christ in his kingly character. And a lot of people know the truth and hide it. You know, because there's no way you can read the Bible and read it in a constructive way and don't know the significance or the transition of His Imperial Majesty.
Mm-hmm.
An earth rightful ruler. So you have to come to the realization at some point that this is earth rightful ruler. And just like I said, the sea shall take back its course, the river shall take back its course. And those are all nature. The nature must take back its course. I shall bring my sons and daughters from across the ends of the earth, because they shall know I for who I am. Selassie.
Yes, give
But,
thanks. So Russ, Count Ossie did not really have any problems with his family coming up into Rastafari. But how was it with your mother when he met your mother? Was there any problems, or that they
well,
fight against Rasta, or?
my mother father is a Syrian, you know, him don't even like dark skinned people. So I don't really know much about my grandfather on that side, but what I do know is that my mother accepted my father for who he are or was, you know, based on the fact that she later becomes a Rastafarian female woman herself and accepted him within her space. Even so, because you know enough Rastaman love the polygamy life affair, and she was so accepting of him that even that never bother her. No woman no die in them feelings. And I see my mother after the passing of because my father have 16 of us. And him have that with different women. And when the passing of my siblings' mother, my mother took everyone and we all grew up right here until who migrate, and who get big and go about them separately. But she had all 16 of us here at one point. You know, so she was pretty much accepting of the Rastafari faith. She even smoked the chalice. As a female, that is sometimes unheard of. But my mother, she smoked the chalice. And she have some female friends like Miss Carmen, Miss Dottie, and couple. I have to say Aunt Carmen, because that's how it is. I have to call my mother's friends auntie, and my father's brethren, I have to call them brother or uncle, because as it is one big family, you know. And that just bring me to the point when they visited Addis Ababa, His Majesty said, when you go back, organize and centralize, because when you come back to Africa, not only men will come, but women and children also. That was the message that he sent with Sam Clayton, Douglas Mack, and Fillmore Alvaranga coming back to Jamaica. You know?
Yes.
Organize, centralize, because when you come, it's not only you will be coming, but women and children. So for me, His Majesty was very open to the fact of repatriation. You know, he wanted repatriation. I am not sure to quote him straight, but at one point he said, if you don't know me, ask the little brethren in Jamaica who I am. And to see that it's spread right now, that the biggest and largest gathering is in South Africa. Brethren, you know, is a journey. And I must say, a luta continua. You know, the struggle continues. You know.
Yes, give thanks. So now when we come to your own experience growing up in that Count Ossie camp at Ad Astra Road and then Glasspool Avenue, can you give us maybe some insight, some feeling? How was it? What were the activities that were going on? And as a Rastafari camp, what would one have to expect going there? Maybe in the 1960s, the 1970s, early 1970s. How was Rastafari lived there, and what would we encounter there if we kind of a time travel there now?
Brethren, it was all acceptance. Whosoever will may come. All acceptance. There, if you come to my father's camp, you would never get turned away, regardless of color, creed, or societal background, because they always accept. For me, I grew up listening more than speaking, because as I said, there's always a level of reasoning, whether it be worldwide or locally. There's always reasoning, you know, and the female must wear something on their head at all times during the reasoning, you know, and you know, participate as well. So it was an all-inclusive. I remember one brethren, he's a famous lawyer, Anthony Gifford, Lord Anthony Gifford. He came to the camp and he said the reason why he loves the camp because they don't accept, they just don't turn him back. They accept him for who he is, and he was a fair-skinned brethren, you know. So he mentioned that to me even recently, that my father accepted him on the camp. So it was an all-inclusive thing that if you come, you would be accepted. You wouldn't be turned back, you know.
And in terms of activities, for example, as first time in 2016 when I was passing through Glasspole Avenue and Count Ossie Center, there was always basically groundation Sunday evening. And when I read in the history that this goes back, this is a long tradition, Sunday evening groundation. How was that, and how the groundation and the reasoning go together? For example, in an interview, a Count Ossie interview, it was the article for the Jamaica Journal with Verena Record that Verena Record wrote. She wrote that that in the prolonged chanting sessions and drumming sessions, that they then realized that afterwards the reasoning would also be more intense and more deeper and more insightful. So how did the groundation and reasoning come together, and how was that if one would come in now on a Sunday evening, for example, Glasspole Avenue, Count Ossie Center, back then again during the time of Count Ossie? How was the vibe there?
The vibe was Heir, man. You come, depends on how much brethren would be there You know, there's, as I said, it can be global, it can be about Rastafari, but there's always a reasoning. Traditionally, one's just gather. You know, it's just a place to be for reasoning, and you know you're going to hear some good music. And that's what brought most of the musicians there. Because you have Johnny Moore, Phil Moore, Tommy McCook, you know, because the drums with the horns was always what they do. You know, as a little youth, I would have did it and I would have observed a brethren come, you know, and every players of instruments shall be there. You know, so the brethren, them would have come in one, and they would, you know, it wasn't a timeline as to Grow Nation. Grow Nation could go on and on and on until whenever. You know, you said about present time right now. Present time right now, we do our Grow Nation, but it's not as prolonged as it would be then. You know, because as you know, things has changed, and so we do things a little bit different. But we still do have Grow Nations, and we still do a bit of reasoning before or after the music. You know, but there's always a gathering, man.
And when now in coming together at Mystic Revelation Groundation, basically, from that time, from what do you remember from that time? Was there also different Rastafari representatives from maybe different camps? Now we know all that there was, you know, Nyabingi, Bobo Shanti, 12 Tribes of Israel, Ethiopian Orthodox, and different other camps and so on. Was this like a place where different ones would come together, or was it more like a specific camp where it would go like in a very specific direction to say, well, this is Count Ossie camp, this is another man's camp, this is 12 tribes, this is, or was there a mingling around? Because sometimes in the literature it looked very much like there was some very clear dividing lines, but then even today, still on the ground in Jamaica, you see that then there is actually a kind of mingling. How was it in the Count Ossie camp? Would you also encounter, for example, Dreadlocks brethren from West Kingston? Were they also passing through, or was it a strictly East Kingston setting at your time when you were growing up?
No, man. Brethren would come from every angle, man. Martin Planner was a Westman, and he used to come over at times with his brethren. You have some brethren from the East, Bobo, but they used to come as well. Everybody, you know, in different times, different brethren would forward, man. But as I say, it's an acceptance, and every brethren, it is never a divide, but more a mingle. You know, ones and ones could come and mingle. You know, some of the sister in them would have baked, you know, pudding, cake, whatever, and you know, you just come and just full dry and party and just have a good time. You know. So there's never a divide. At one point we used to have like meetings. Like when one would have set up a repatriation committee, Rasta Silva and couple more brethren, and them would have come to the house and we'll meet and we talk about going forward, you know, and how would I articulate yourself going forward, you know, based on everyone was under the same banner and has the same dreams and aspiration of returning to kit and kin. So on that note, we had no issues in terms of back to Africa. Everyone was aware of the fact that this is the purpose, this is the dream. Africa will want to go and chant down Babylon. You know, so It was always a mingle, no divide, no nothing. I never really hear of any ill speaking of any sort. It's always peace, love, and a divide, and a gathering of minds in terms of how we go forward in terms of back to Africa. Never any animosity. No.
Give thanks. So even when it came to, as we know, there is different philosophical overstanding of Rastafari about who His Majesty is and so on. So you would say the common ground was always back to Africa, repatriation, and that united all of them.
Yes, I straight talk. All of the brethren them know say one aim, one goal, one destiny. That was one of the motto back in the days for all Rasta. One goal, one aim, one destiny. And all that destiny is back to Africa.
And in terms of the drumming, was there also they were all getting along as well? Because in the interviews and as we also know, Count Ossie would sometimes explain that the East Kingston drumming, the Count Ossie Mystic Revelation drumming had a bit more of the Kumina influence and was a bit faster than the West Kingston drumming. How you experience that? It still went along with the different camps?
Yes. For instance, if you go to the West, the drumming would be much slower. If you come to Counters' camp, I spoke to one brethren like Yellow Man, and him say, it is a signature style. See, music is 4 beats to the bar. So the influence of the horns, Johnny Moore, Tommy McCook, Roland Alfonso, at one time Jackie Me too, and keyboards. It was what happened is that Counters' drumming becomes more musical. So the beat would be a bit faster in terms of tempo. So in other words, instead of making it one borough beat, you now have more than one beat, which is Mystic Revelation of Rastafari, have a signature type influence, which is a little faster drumming, a little faster chanting. Because what happens is that we tour and we be on stage, so it's more a concert type drumming than a backyard drumming. That's my input in terms of the difference. The Nyabingi backyard drumming could go on forever with the heartbeat. But on a commercial level, Counters' drumming would be more on a up-tempo beat. So that is where the influence of the Kumina, because there is sounds from the drum that are straight Kumina sound. Let me just illustrate something to you. We'd be like, that type of fast beat you would never hear on certain camp. On certain camp you would hear. The influence of the Kumina would go. You understand what I'm saying? You know, so it's a total different thing from, you know, when it's more commercial, then you can have that type of up-tempo beat. When it's more churchical, as my father and his brethren would say, it's more churchical, you know. So you hear the singing and it's wailing. But for the horns, it would be more comfortable and an up-tempo beat. So that's where you get that from, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the up-tempo beat was created slowly by Count Ossie. If you listen a song like Oh Carolina, which is one of Count Ossie's most famous songs, you will hear that up-tempo, that dancing beat. But if you listen to a Ground Nation album, you will hear a 1-2, you know, because Ground Nation means grounding the nation, you know, because as Brother Sam Clayton would say, you have a live wire, and when you have a grounded wire, you won't get shocked. That is what is missing from our culture today, the grounded wire. That's why so much people get shocked. You know, them lose them culture. Them lose the whole aspect of love. And so they are just out there running around like chicken with them head chop off. Because if you don't know where you're coming from, you can't know where you're going. You know? So the wise it's a word from the wise. You have to know where you're coming from in order to know where you're going. Rastafari is that binding message that keep the faith and keep the hope of many. Because if we never have Rastafari, you know, we as a rebellious nation would have been far more rebellious. But based on the fact that we know that I am my brother's keeper, that alone keep me from hurting others. You know? Yeah, man, that's the thing there.
Yes, I give thanks. So, and Count Ossie said also in an interview 1972 with Bob Whitmer, the Rastafarian used this drum, reminding the whole colonial master that we're not really born in Jamaica. I mean, we're born in Jamaica, but we roots coming to Ethiopia. Is that what you mean when you say it reminds them of the culture, meaning the African culture and also the African identity?
Yes, because I believe the drumming is in our DNA. The drumming, we came here with some of us not even close the dip on our back. But now you have brethren like myself and many others that plays the drum with the mastery of any African that is born in Africa. You know, some brethren even make the drums. You know, there's no way you can inherit something. It is inborn. You know, certain things you don't inherit. It's inborn. It's in our DNA to play the drums the way we play the drums. Whether it be Kumina, Naya Bingi, or any other spiritual aspect of the drums. You have Dinky Mini, you have so many other different aspects of the drum that is played. But it's all rooted from a strain in Africa, whether it be West Africa, East Africa, or Central Africa.
Mm.
You know, there's
And
always allegiance to that.
And as far as I know, it was not possible for Count Ossie during his lifetime to visit the African continent. Is that correct?
No, it's not.
It's not,
When
okay.
Samuel Clayton and Fillmore they went, it is Count Ossie that they wanted to go. Count Ossie chose to send those brethren in representation of his camp. He could have gone, but they, I must say that Count Ossie is not a virgin of many words. So he sent his brethren to represent those that are of more words than he is. You know?
So he had
Yeah,
the possibility. I even read that he gave his ticket to Phil Malvaranga because Phil Malvaranga was financing drums and even using his card for the to going to the shows.
To take us from point A to point B. Yeah, man. Phil, that's correct. Because what happened that what brought Fillmore to that point is that you have a brethren by the name of Brother Royal. As me say, Rastafari wasn't really accepted, and they had a show in Spanish Town. And not getting any transportation to come back to Kingston, he walked with the bass drum on his head from Spanish Town to Rockford. I don't see that level of commitment these days, but I know it's possible, but I still don't see that level of commitment these days.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as Mr. Rastafari was an outcast, and they didn't even want to have the bass drum on the bus. But knowing that him need him bass drum, him not leave it. So him walk with it when him come at East Kingston. I'm not sure if you know where Spanish Town there, but that's a wicked walk, brother. That's not a normal walk, brother. I'm not sure if I would do that still. I don't forget some transportation, but that just to show the commitment of the brethren from Spanish Town to Kingston. You can do the geographics on any Google. And on a normal walk from Spanish Town to Rockford.
Actually, for one of the Mystic Revelation Groundations once, I came from Spanish Town, but on the transport, on the public transport. So even with public transport, it was quite a way to reach there. So I can imagine when you walk the whole way, it is something else.
Jaja. It's a heavy walk, man. I'm glad you have the experience. I even traveling on the bus, and because the bus it take a minute too, it just happen. And for him to be walking, man, and it was after midnight as well. Because my father used to have these midnight specials. I hear some tracks like Remembering Count Ossie and some other tracks that Moody's did. And those were from some midnight session. They are pretty much unauthorized use right now because they weren't for recording. They were like midnight, because they used to have midnight special, The dance hall would go until midnight, and then you have midnight attraction with Count Ossie and his African drums. He'd play for maybe a 2 or 3 hours, and then they go back to the sound system. So that a lot of those recordings, as I heard them, they're from that era. Cumberland Road in a Spanish Town.
And I read that that was already starting in the late 50s with the dancer Margarita Mayfoot and these midnight shows. So, but that means there was already some kind of acceptance then into late 50s, early 1960s, where people would listen to African drums, Rasta drums for hours, from midnight, as you say, 2-3 hours.
Yes, it was an acceptance when you have it combined with a Tommy McCook and Roland and Fanso, because that's what gives birth to the Scatterlight. That same group of brethren, you know, they are from Alpha Boys School, and that's what gives birth to the Scatterlight.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And speaking about Scatterlights, in the literature, it is also always very much emphasized the role that Count Ossie played in the development of reggae music itself.
Yeah.
Some even say he was the one who developed reggae music by crossing the Rasta drumming with the ska. How
Yes.
do you see his influence on that?
That is definitely so, because ska was a bit quick. You can't dance ska all night. You know, because it was a very quick type drum instrumental group. But then the same song like Oh Carolina, it breaks it down where you could dance more easily to it. So it moves from ska to rock steady. You know, the bass line in the music get a bit slower. You know, and that's so much true, because if you look into the transport center up in Halfway Tree, Counters is the first musician that is displayed within that, and it is pretty much telling of the transition of the music coming from from ska to rock steady to reggae. Now it's dancehall.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so yeah, man, definitely he had his influence there.
Yes, give thanks. And coming back to that you said, well, he could have had the opportunity to travel to Africa, but gave it to other brethren like Phil Alvaranga. But you yourself, I remember first time we met in 2016 around the 50th anniversary of His Majesty's visit to Jamaica. You told me that actually you were able to travel the African continent and, for example, spent a few months in Ghana. So from your experience now, growing up basically in an African environment in Jamaica as well, where there is African people with an African identification and self-understanding all your life growing up, and then coming to the African continent, when your own father, as you said, was not able to come himself to see the African continent. How was that experience for you to see the African continent, and from seeing African people in Jamaica and then African people on the continent? How was that whole experience?
Well, experience was wonderful, man. It's very accepting. I went to Ghana in a town called just outside of Abri. But I went there on a voluntary mission because I was thinking of giving back to Mother Africa some kind of way. My sister wanted to build a school in this little town them called Obomasi. So I stayed in Abri, and I traveled to Obomasi every day, helped to build that school because I had some experience in construction. And all of this was voluntary. She asked me to go, and I jumped on the opportunity to give back to Mother Africa. I assure that school is still operating in Obosomasi, you know, which is a small town just outside of Abri. I spent 5 months there and make sure that school was built, you know, as my personal contribution to Mother Africa in terms of education, because a school is like, you know, And it was an infant school as that. I could never resist, man. You know.
And while living,
the experience was great because the people was very welcoming. You know, I stayed with Ghanaians. They cook my food. The food is very similar. You know, well, you know, we not to eat meat, so it's more fish and vegetable for I. So that's where I kept it. You know, and it was great. It was a great 5 months. You know, miss my family at home, and you know, but the time spent was well deserved, I think, and well appreciated from what I heard up until this day. And the school is operational right now, so give thanks. You know?
and while living this 5 months in Ghana, from the cultural side, did you see many similarities, for example, also even to the drumming, or maybe some differences to the drumming and the chanting and the singing, the cultural music side to it? How was that experience?
The culture, yeah, well, we have some similar cultural, but you know, they're not doing Rasta drumming. But we have them, they do some level of drumming, you know, it's retention. You know, it's more like just playing drums. You know, we do a format. There wasn't they just play drums. There was no format. You just play drum. You know.
And did you chant?
Yeah, they chant, but it's not like Naya Bingi chanting. It's more like, because you know, in Ghana, it's more Christianly influenced than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you hear more church type music. You know, one famous artist from Jamaica that got a lot of airplays, Bojo. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Yeah, that one I can remember hearing it play like every morning. There's a neighbor to us that he played that song like every morning.
Mm-hmm.
That Bojo song, yeah man. So even over there, the reggae influence, and they loved Lucky Dube.
Mm.
Yeah, man. You know, Lucky
And
Dube,
and
Bob Marley. Sorry.
and you yourself, were you drumming there, maybe with checking out the local drums there? Were you chanting there, doing any music, or just
Yes,
for the construction of the school?
I took my drum with me, but I practiced alone. For the time of the year, I've never been in anything such as an assembly or any other drum. I practiced alone and you know just do my thing. I was very fearful of the dengue too, you know, so I'm not too stay out because at that time dengue was rampant in Ghana, and I didn't want to get sick there. So you know,
And
I pretty much do my house drumming, you know, do my chanting to self, and just all a medi, as we would have said in Jamaica, just born all a medi, you know. But I've never tried to play with the rest of brethren. I saw them, but I never tried to, you know, get, because the philosophy is totally different.
did you
Because for instance,
encounter?
huh?
No, go
For
on, please.
instance, some people with dreadlocks in Ghana, they would look at them as crazy people. You know, you do have Rastafarians, you know, but they look at most dreadlock as, and when you smoke herb, they say you are crazy as well. Because many of them, they don't smoke, period. And if they do smoke it, they smoke cigarettes. So
And did you encounter Rastafari there as well, Rastafari communities or so, while you were living there?
I remember one dreadlock Rasta. His name is Morgan. He was a lawyer, and yeah, him all in reverence, but he wasn't like trying to influence anyone else. If you understand, he all in reverence. He's a Rastafarian, and he's one of the brethren that I eventually start going closer to. You know, maybe if I did it for a longer period, I would eventually start expounding and start, you know, going out more. But for the time I was there, I was, you know, just tucked away at a project. I focused on the project because I really wanted to get that project done. You know?
Yes, give thanks.
Yeah,
And
man.
now, before we open the floor for more questions from participants in the Zoom here, now specifically also, since this is the Rastafari Reasonings project at the University of Vienna, and as we said, you know, groundation, reasoning, and so on was always very central, and was also developed very much by Count Ossie, Mystic Revelation. How would you explain reasoning to somebody, and how is it different from maybe just a normal conversation? What is this? What is the significance and the special importance about reasoning from your experience?
Reasoning is actually the topic, you know, because you could be reasoning about several different topics. Rastafari reasoning is about Rastafari in terms of the origin, where one get them inspiration from, where one get them acceptance from. You know, so for me, reasoning is what you choose to reason about. Because as I said, on the camp of my father, it could be worldwide reasoning. I'm sure if not for the brethren them the day today, what are going on in Israel and them place there, they would be reasoning about it. So for me, reasoning is the topic of what you choose to reason about. You know, that
Yes,
is my level.
I would
Go
then
ahead.
also like come to that maybe later towards the end of the reasoning about, you know, more current situations and Rastafari reasoning about that. But quickly also still on the topic of research and university research, there has of course always been research on and with Count Ossie, as I said, Verena Record article in the Jamaica Journal already in 1976-77 was one of the early ones. Later, of course, Helena Lee did a lot of study about Count Ossie Mystic Revelation in her book, The First Rasta. From your experience on research on Rastafari and also with universities and researchers and then being published, what was your experience on that, and what is your advice for researchers or for those who are interested to learn about Rastafari, and those who then maybe even want to write about Rastafari or publish about Rastafari, what you have seen so far? What was maybe some things that you found good about it? What would you say maybe was something that was not done well? And what would your advice be for Rastafari research in general?
Well, if you intend to do any such documentary, please speak to the people that knows. Try to get the facts. Try to get the original facts from the original people. I know many of them is past now, but you know, the pioneers of Rastafari, try to get the facts from them, because the truth shall set you free. So if you're going to reason with any, you found me in terms of Count Ossie and Count Ossie's legacy. So find the right people, because I know Ellen Lee personally. She had done some tours within the whole mystic revelation of Rastafari. She had, done some tour for us. And she reasoned with Brother Sam Clayton extensively, and not only him, but other Rastafarians as well. So she has gotten some important information in terms of fact finding. So I advise anyone trying to do a documentary, because I have seen many misleading things that is not, true, and them need to be corrected. So in going forward, I would really appreciate if ones and ones would find the right people for the right info.
Yes, give thanks. Yes, this is exactly why we have the Rastafari Reasonings project and reasonings like this one we have right now, so that people can find out from the pioneers who were there themselves for themselves, to find out directly from themselves, from them for themselves. And so that's why with this, I would like now also give the opportunity to ones and ones in the Zoom to do exactly that, pose your direct questions to one who was there throughout a lot of Rastafari development, and so that ones can find out for themselves. Please use the raising hand reaction in the Zoom, so that everybody who would like to pose a question and reason can have the opportunity to do so. Give thanks.
Maybe.
Yes, give thanks. I see Ras Kaimo. Dr. Jake Homiak, please come forward.
Blessed love in the name of His and Her Imperial Majesties, Emperor Haile Selassie I and Empress Menenasfa. Brother Time Williams, I give thanks to see the eye countenance and for the edification that the eye has given I this afternoon. Wonderful to see the eye. Yeah, man. The fact of the matter is, I have too many questions to ask. So I've taken the many questions, and I have 4 things here. Maybe we could start with 2, and I could come back later and with the other 2. But the first question is, the eye reasoned about your mother being a Rasta woman and being present in the reasonings in Count Ossie's camp, and even sitting up with the chalice. So I find this a very interesting point, because my trad has been within the Nyabingi house, and until recently, it would have been a very exceptional thing to cite a woman, a Rasta woman, participating in the reasoning. It happens sometimes, but it would be the definite exception until recently. So I'm wondering if that was a common thing at Count Ossie's camp, that women sometimes would be past the chalice, number 1, and number 2, actually participate and offer their views and perspectives in the reasoning itself, so that we could start with that one.
My mother never smoked chalice in public. It is personally with Count Ossie. They had that relationship. My father and her, they would burn the chalice together. But definitely at the camp, she would be present, but she wouldn't smoke the chalice. Like, for instance, the chalice goes around.
See.
No, she wouldn't partake in that. But definitely at home, because you see, I see a different side of my mom and my dad that many people don't see. you know. So she would, for instance, anything that she could catch, she would put it on her head like this, and then she would smoke the chalice and pass it on to him.
Okay.
They had that relationship. I don't know what it was, but that's between them. They had that, but she don't really, and a couple of his personal brethren that used to probably live in this yard here. Yeah, she would, but at the established camp, no, she don't, not in that public way.
Okay, so she didn't smoke the chalice, but did she participate in the reasonings? Would she be present and offer a perspective or a response
No,
to various views?
that's the man thing. She would be present, but she would keep quiet, and the man them would do them reasoning straight.
I give thanks.
Yeah, man, blessings.
So the second question I wanted to come with was, I know from my own research on Rastafari that the earliest what we might think of as missions abroad of Rastafari to carry the culture and the music to other places were by Count Ossie and members of his group, whether it was, when they were first called Count Ossie and the African Drums, or as the Mystic Revelation of Rastafari. I'm thinking back to the early 70s when the group went to Guyana. When they were in Guyana, they were cited by a professor from Howard University who said, "Oh, you must come to Washington, D.C. to Howard University." So they went to Howard. And then from reasoning with other elders in the Eastern Caribbean, I'm aware that Count Ossie's group traveled to places like Antigua, perhaps some of the other smaller islands, and maybe farther on in the 70s, definitely made a trip to Trinidad and Tobago. Now, all of those travels came before Dreadlocks elders started to travel in the early 80s. So I'm wondering, one, what you might insight the eye might give us on those travels, and two, any thoughts you might have about how that created the seedbed for what would follow outside in the greater Caribbean and places, because they also went to London and the UK, etc. So any thoughts on the traveling culture of Rastafari that Count Ossie promoted?
I was there in 1972 as a small youth when he traveled to Trinidad and Guyana. I was pretty much there, and as I said, the whole idea was to spread Rastafari doctrine far and wide. You know that after we came back from that tour, because that same year, 1972, we toured Trinidad, we toured Guyana, and we also did a Canadian and American tour. Howard University, Harvard, Amherst, and all of those universities, we toured them, and it was all about spreading Rastafari doctrine throughout the world. So that's what it was, that's just definitely what it was. No sugarcoating, glad for the opportunity to spread Rastafari love and gospel around the world.
Give thanks for that, my brethren. I think that is
one misunderstanding. We didn't went to Antigua.
Okay.
But later on we went to London.
What year was London?
No, that was 1986.
1986. And do you remember Count Ossie and the group working with Miss Olive Lewin in the Memory Bank project?
Definitely. Olive Lewin is a lover of Count Ossie and his drums. Definitely. After her passing, I played at the chapel of the university, based on the fact that she loved Count Ossie's drum, that she mentioned it in one of her bio.
Lovely, yes.
Yeah, man. So I definitely played at her passing.
Nice. I worked with Olive in 1989. Yeah, 89, because we were going around to different groups, the Kumina groups, the Etu groups, etc., different kinds of African Jamaican drumming. But when we got to the I was interested in bringing a Nyabingi group to the Smithsonian Folklife Festival, and she said, "Well, that's on you," because she wasn't going to be involved in that. She said, too much herb smoking with them brethren there, so she left me to deal with that.
Yeah, well,
But
well,
how it go.
yeah, man. The herb is never an acceptance, even now, because there's no, in some places you still can't burn your herb,
Yeah,
but
man.
I know that she and her society friend them never really like that.
Well, just let me sneak one more in, and maybe I can make a return visit. But you talk about how Count Ozzy would travel to other parts, like go over to Spanish Town and
Yeah.
hold Ground Nation over there. I'm wondering if the camp in Spanish Town where they went was the riverbank camp on the Rio Cobra, because I've heard people tell me about that camp.
No, it was more like a stage show type thing where them have a midnight special. Unless it's before my time or my knowledge, But for my knowledge, it was like like more like stage shows in the midnight special that they would do their thing, And you'd have like Orange Man, like Tommy McCook and Roland and
Nice.
Fancy and Dissimore. Dissimore has 3 children with my father's niece, which is my cousin. So that it was that tight of a relationship,
It's interesting that you should raise, Dizzy Johnny's name here, because some of the older brethren, some of whom are now in their 80s, were Dreadlocks brethren on the Warwick Hill camp above where your father was.
Yeah,
And
Pinnacle.
they used to come down and ground with him, and vice versa.
That's the place they used to call. That's the first pinnacle I know.
All
I'm
right.
happy that you mentioned it. It's the first pinnacle that place they used to call Pinnacle up there until my father legally acquired this piece of property right next down there, so they could come down and build a community center. But first, the brethren, it was, because as you know, Johnny was a dreadlock rasta.
Highly.
Yes, so as I was saying, there wasn't any discrepancy. It was just a unified thing where come in and come full joy. That's
Nice,
just how it was.
nice. Well,
Yeah,
another story the I was 9 years old at the time, or actually he would have been younger at during the 63 mission to Africa. Some of the Dreadlocks brethren I knew who were from what you're calling Pinnacle said that they would go down to the camp because letters from Fillmore Alvaranga and them would come back and be read to Rasta brethren and sistren at the camp. So
definitely.
the site was a news carrier site.
I know of those letters because they spent 6 months in Addis Ababa. So they definitely wrote back like updates and stuff like that. But I know of those, but then I was 6 years old.
Okay. All right, my brethren. I'll give time to others now. Blessed love,
right.
my brethren.
Give thanks.
Rastafari, live and reign.
Every time, King. Blessed love.
Highly.
Give thanks for the reasoning. Maybe Raskaimu, there is maybe later some time to come back with more questions. Right now I see Bongo Wisely. Tafara raised his hands. Please come forward, Bongo Wisely. Give thanks.
Yes, I greetings, Rastafari.
Rastafari live king.
Blessed love, my Lord. Give thanks for your testimony, you know. Yeah, man.
Blessed.
Thanks. You know,
Hello.
I learned quite a lot, you know.
Hello to
Yeah, man.
chanting.
Well, Rastafari. Well, I'm not from Jamaica. I'm from St. Lucia.
Yeah, man.
Right? I spent some time in Jamaica as a student.
Yes,
And
sir.
I remember, I think I saw your father perform at the National Stadium in August 1974.
Yeah.
And to me, I think, and within that same era, I think he passed away.
No, he passed off 1976. 2 years after that.
76. Oh,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, yeah, man. Because I saw him. That was the only time I saw him at the Independence celebration in 1974. You know.
That was what, a Curry Festa?
Curry Festa. Right. Yes,
And I was there, man. I was there, man.
Yeah, man.
100 drums, Bongo Herman, and couple other brethren that we can remember from the head top. Bongo Herman was there, and they had like 100 drums drumming and dancers running from all different directions.
True. Yeah, man. That
Yeah,
was
man,
an
it was a glorified moment, man, because as I said, I remember those things, you know, because even when I didn't want to play the drums, my father was like, what would I call in a Jamaica? Bad me up, the old man, where you deal with. You know, so it's as if I must say, listen, you are the future, you know. I want you upon this. You understand?
True.
So now today I more over what he meant then, because I am out of 16, I am the only one who continue.
Continue.
And it is said that a wise son follow the footsteps of his father.
Definitely.
And an ignorant son is the stupidity of his mother. So I'm an happy to say, you know, I there with the kete, you see it?
Yeah, man. True.
Yep.
Yes, but the question I really wanted to ask the Aya is, in terms of your father and Leonard Howell, what was there any close relationship, or what did your father visit Pinnacle in Spanish Town, or did Leonard Howell go to the camp by your father? Was there a relationship between the two?
No, actually it's not Spanish Town, but Sligoville.
Sligoville, yeah, right. Sorry,
So
Sligoville.
Yeah. I wouldn't try them time there, but it's regular. I heard of him going to Sligoville.
Insane.
You know, so I know he went to Sligoville where, you know, and I heard of the word Pinnacle, but I was too small at the time to know who he met there and what they do there. But I later on come to the knowledge that Owil and Powell, they were the ones that used to run that campus Sligoville. So there must be some level of connection because he used to traverse over there more than one time, and I get the understanding. So them go Sligoville. That's the first time even hearing the name Sligoville. When you know, bridging them are go Sligoville. This Sunday the bridging them are go Sligoville. You know, next Sunday them are go. So definitely there was a connection.
Well, give thanks, Rastafari.
Yes, yeah, man, just live every time, brother.
Aye.
Bless it.
Yes, give thanks for the reasoning. Just to add, maybe part of that connection was Douglas Mack in his From Babylon to Rastafari was writing about that, but also some other literature. Brother Lover, who apparently was a student of Leonard Howell, and then opened his camp already in the 1940s in Varica, and then I think Douglas Mack said that actually Count Ossie was also kind of a student of Brother Lover, and also through that connection also was involved Brother Job again. So maybe that was a connection to Pinnacle and Leonard Howell. Maybe I know we reasoned about this before, Brother Time, but maybe a few words on the Brother Lover, Vareka Hills, Pinnacle connections still.
Yeah, well, as I said, Pinnacle was adjacent to what now is our community center. I used to go up there, but they used to have their drumming and thing. I'm not sure what used to happen up there, but Brother Lover is definitely an influence where Counters is concerned, you know. But as grown people, I weren't into their conversation as much, you know. So Brother Douglas Mack, he would have more knowledge of what used to happen at that time, you know.
Yes, give thanks. As I said, now I found it in Douglas Max from Babylon to Rastafari. He makes this connection that actually Brother Lover was one of Brother Howell's disciples, says, and then he opened up his own camp still in the 1940s in Mountain View Avenue, Vareka Hills. And he says that some of Brother Lover's followers were including Count Ossie and Brother Fillmore. And Brother Job was the master arquette drummer at that time. That was Brother Douglas Mack, ancient Douglas Mack's testimony on this. Give
All
thanks.
right. You know, if you notice the timeline he mentioned on that in the 40s. I born 57, so you know,
Yes.
I can only have words from these brethren as to what happened during those times, you know.
Just
Yes,
quickly, since you mentioned that before, before we come to the next question, that Count Ossie had 16 children.
16.
16 children. Were you the oldest one, or how did it come that you were the one taking over the legacy?
No, I am the third child. I'm of Trevor, Wilton, and then I. So I am number 3. You check it, the Trinity.
Okay, give thanks.
And I am the only surviving child for my mother as well. And them name my Samuel. Now Samuel mother pray if you have a child, because if she have a child, she'll give him back unto the Lord. So it's just I am just playing out Samuel because my mother was with Count Ossie before anyone else. And I remember at one time in the Bible, the other children mother, they used to mock her and saying that she's barren and can't have no picnic and things like that. You know, and she had actually prayed to the Lord to have a son, and if she had a son, she would have given him back unto the Lord. Check this. I name time, them I take 13 months to born.
Oh.
That's why they call me time. Everybody else take 19. I take 13. You know, so the doctor said you should name this child Long Time. So them just chop off the long time and call I time. You know, that's where the name they come from. Heir.
Yes, give thanks. I remember when you told me that many years ago, and yes, is always very very good to hear these testimonies. Give thanks.
Yeah, man.
We have a next a question. Brother John Rogers, please come forward. Give thanks.
Give thanks. Just want to share my appreciation for the divine choreography that has allowed this reasoning to take place, and Brother Time for the opportunity to be connected with you. It's very sacred. Your father's music has nourished my soul like no other, and I give thanks. I give thanks.
All right, blessings and love, man. We have 3 more other albums too where you can check out to Inward Eye
Carried
Carried
Beyond. I love them all. I love them all. Portion of Love is one of my favorite songs to sing with my wife.
Which one?
Portion of Love.
Oh, I actually wrote that song with Bonnie. Douglas, his name is and Dudley is his last name. I don't remember his first name, but we sit same place up at the center, and that song is very, very powerful, man. All
Very
I need is
powerful.
just a potion of love. Yeah, man, big tune, man, big tune,
Big tune, big tune, big tune.
Yeah,
And
man.
and
George Dudley.
yes, I.
Yeah, man,
And
give thanks.
you know, the Mystic Revelations, Cardinal Mind at the end of the Groundation track, the
Yeah.
the crescendo. To me,
Yeah.
the presence of the divine has never been captured so palpably in music as that moment. So
Oh,
yeah.
give thanks, man. Your testimony means a lot to me right now, because you know that you can't go to Zion with a carnal mind, you know. And George Dudley, he sings from the heart.
Yes, every
Yeah,
time, every
yeah,
time.
man. Give
So
thanks, man.
we've had such a blessed reasoning speaking about your father's works. My question is just what was it like to be in his presence? It was mentioned that he was a quiet man, but just what was it like to just be able to, you know, to sit at the feet, to be in the midst of the presence of Count Ossie?
Well, I just sit there humbly and just, maybe that's why I can reason with the item today, because there's a time when you just sit and just listen. You just have to just sit and just listen, and I gasp, I take up the whole of that, every aspect of that, because even the album Ground Nation, when I'm saying ever since I was a youth, I've always been searching for the truth. But having been told so many lies, life like Miss Good Music never dies. So just to give you a synopsis of everything, Brother Sam Clayton said, greetings from these Rastafari brethren, domicile on this former slave plantation isle, Jamaica. As you know, Jamaica is an island in the Caribbean. We were called Caribbean because we as African, we were carried beyond our borders. And that's tales of Mozambique. So I sit at the feet and I can reason with them today because of being humble and being at the feet of the great one, Count Ossie himself. So it's always a blessing. It's always a joy to impart what I got from these brethren, because it was all righteousness.
Give thanks. The quick second question. Would just love to hear you speak about carrying on Mystic Revelation of Rastafari post 1976. The Inward Eye albums with Cedric Brooks. What has that trod been like to take up the mantle and to continue the work of your father?
As you know, it's a total struggle. I'm saddened, but at the same time, I'm glorified, because it's a joy to know, say, may I carry on the work of my father, But at the same time, with the whole heap of mistreatment where one get within the music, because even speaking of Inward Eye, right now, me not get nothing from Inward Eye. Not even a $1 bill. And it is out there selling. I don't know how much you paid for your copy, but it is out there selling, and I am still not benefiting. I am the lead drummer on that album. I also did vocal on that album. If you listen the song Little Samuel, you can hear my voice in that one. Because so it's just sad that these things happen, but at the same time, Aluta continue. The struggle continue. It is what it is, and I wouldn't change it for nothing. Joy to the world. Blessed love.
Give thanks.
Heir.
Give thanks. And speaking about tunes, and as you have just mentioned, Little Samuel, and you mentioned your name, speaking about your name before. Is there any connection, little Samuel, speak Lord, your servant hears? Was there any connection with the little Samuel, or is that coincidence when it comes to the name?
I look at it as divine intervention, but if one look on it as coincidence, I wouldn't have no problem with that, because when the Lord cry, it's as if Samuel wasn't hearing the Lord. Or the Lord think that Samuel wasn't hearing him. And say, little Samuel, oh. And he says, speak, Lord, thy servant hear. It's as if I am hearing you, Father God, speak unto me. So I take that one personal, because I am Samuel.
Mm-hmm.
So the voice coming to me, is to keep the tradition going, to keep things alive. Because you see, I always think of purpose, And when you have a purpose in life, you have a passion. Once you know your purpose, it gives you passion. Passion gives you direction. And I had focus as to what I want to do. Even right now, if I show you, I take all the drums them, and I have all drums surround me right now. I tried to Africa for nothing. I didn't even know where I go. If you get what I say, I knew not where I was going, but I know, speak, Lord, thy servant hear. That are just where I have to do, because the trad unmistakably can be a mistake. The trad have a trad. And it bring me to a point right now where I'm so saddened to see the brethren them where them don't get to reach Africa in an organized way. These younger youth now where have some kind of money, have some kind of influence, have some kind of power, saying that they are Rastafari sons. They are not keeping the tradition of back to Africa. I don't hear none of them talk about back to Africa. I don't want to call no name. Nobody now go sue me. But I don't hear none of them talk about no back to Africa movement and these things, which them brethren there, the Counters, the Sam, the Fillmore, the Brother Dougie, the Martin Planner, Rasas, the Silva, and all, even the 12th tribe of Israel, Ethiopian Orthodox Church, all of these brethren say that they are of one accord. But the younger youth, them don't take up the mantle and run with it. I don't see the younger youth, them take up the mantle and run with it. Every man, I see them with some different color woman on them arm. I see them with aspiration is to go Europe, America. I don't really hear no one to talk about in a collective way going back to Africa. Which, that are the struggle when me want to fight. That are the dream when me want to see manifest itself. Because I four parents, them, desire to return to Kit and King. A man not to stay there, but we want pressure Babylon and the government of the day or tomorrow or whenever, in a sense where them recognize and do something about repatriation. That me I talk about. That is my dream for say, well, carry the baton, carry the legacy. Because the baton has passed to I, unofficially or officially, the baton has passed to I. This is my dream. Make we get repatriation in a sense where every man can return. If you don't even want to stay there, you come back. But on a collective level, I love if we can get repatriation back to Africa. nationwide, you know.
And on this topic, also Count Ossie said that in an interview, and of course, Mystic Revelation was always on that level to pressure governments. For example, the whole mission to Africa was to facilitate government-to-government repatriation. How did you see the development of repatriation, and for example, how the Jamaican government is involved, or governments in general, African governments, how you see it now in the 21st century most feasible? Do you still say the approach should be to pressure governments, or do you say, well, the governments the help from the governments was not forthcoming, we should now push more for individual ways? Or how do you see now feasible the fight for repatriation and reparations at this point in time?
Well, as far as I know, there is a faculty or a department by the university that speaks of repatriation. Through Professor Vereen Shepherd, she plays some role in that through the UWI University. You know, recently I opened for a consulate. We played some drum opening for the consulate of Shashamani, yeah. So you find say things is opening up, but it's opening up on an individual basis, where you can buy a ticket now and go to Sierra Leone. Sorry, not Shashamani, Sierra Leone. You can go to Sierra Leone just buying a ticket now, but I still feel like there's an organized way where we can go about things, King. You know? Yeah, man.
And speaking of, for example, in 1966, as we spoke before, when His Majesty visited Jamaica and you were there to see him, he said actually also that he was working on including Jamaica into the Organization of African Unity at that time. Do you see any approach in that direction yet? The Jamaican government, is there more close connection between African countries, Jamaica or Caribbean countries? Do we see soon direct flights from the Caribbean to the continent? Is there things happening? Are you happy with it, or do you see it's going too slow? How you see that development?
Right now, to me, the government of the day, them not have no vision in terms of Africa. So for me, it is not going at all. Slow would have been an overstatement. It not go none at all. It's not. I don't hear them talk about Africa like that. None at all. You know. So for me, that's why I speak of the younger youths them with the influence, because maybe them need to hear it more in them ears. You know, if them hear it from that generation and them not hear it, coming like them and say, we don't have to deal with it because they no longer interested. But if them hear it on a level, come from one to the next, so at some point them have to recognize it, you know. But for right now, I don't see nothing now go on.
Give thanks, yes.
Nothing
Give thanks for that testimony. Already in 1972, interviewed by Bob Whitmer, Count Ossie said very much the same, that he said, well, he's not actually even vexed with the Prime Minister and the government that they don't push for more repatriation, because they say it is understandable if majority of the people don't seem interested in repatriation, then of course the government doesn't take it up.
Definitely, because you see, where the government deal with is more vote, you know. If you have, all right, we are at like say 2.5 to 3 million people in Jamaica. And you have a percentage of that talk about repatriation. The majority vote I go cut somewhere. So voting is where them are deal with right now. Them not deal with migrating.
Mm.
You know.
And
Them are
as
deal with
as
population.
mm,
You know, so upon a level of migration, them no want to hear them talk. Them no want to hear nothing about no migration. Because it's a lesson for them vote.
mhm, I see. And yes, give
And
thanks
just a
for
minute. And that's why the Coral Gardens affair did go on, you know. Because them did see Rastafari as coming up against government. So Bustamante say, who can abide by the law? Them either go to jail, and if the jail can't hold, them are go a boot hill. You understand? That means say who not listen, kill them out. And you know of the atrocities of Coral Gardens. Only if a brethren lose them lives down there. I hear of a female who have to wrap up all her brethren in a mattress. You know, man, old man, and you know, even in this yard there right now, I personally is a 2 time them running at the yard there, take me up and carry me go to the children's home, say, me not no parents. My mother had to go retrieve me twice from the home of safety because when them come in at the yard, describe quote as a ganja camp. Some of the brethren, them have to run through the background about them business, them kick off the pot, them stab up the drums, them, and all these things. You know, these are memories that I have within my head. Say, the man, them push them bayonet through the drum, them use them bayonet and trim off some of the man, them, we have them little buds that come. You know, so Babylon, them just don't want have nothing to do, and I brought that forward because it is a yearning issue from my heart from them time there. Until this time, I still say Rasta get what would I call downbeat. You know, we have come a long way, but still there's a long way to go, brother, in terms of acceptance and repatriation.
mm-hmm. Yes, give thanks. And
I said someone note something about well said, Brother Sam, about repatriation. It come off on my screen real quick, so I didn't get to hear with them.
Yes, I just wanted to mention it. That was Bongo Wisely in the chat. Bongo Wisely is the chairman of the Rastafari Caribbean, the Caribbean Rastafari organization, the CRO.
CRO, yeah.
Yes, and they say they have a repatriation project, reparationsforsettlement.net. I can, it is already in the chat for ones to check out. I can also share later with Dai as well. And he says repatriation must be organized. I guess it means not just on an individual level, and that the Caribbean Rastafari organization, CRO, is already working on it. And maybe through this reasoning, you can exchange further with Bongo Wisely, who is the chairman of the CRO, in that direction.
Yeah, man, I give thanks for the utterance, man, because we are share the same need.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and if the fight, you know, remember His Majesty say, you know, the matches is struck somewhere, but it can burn down somewhere else. So if Rastafari birth come from Jamaica and the Caribbean can take it up, and get that fight going. More powers to the movement, brother. More powers to the movement, because it's not a one-man fight, it's a every-man fight.
Give thanks. Give thanks. And that's why reasonings like these are important, and give thanks that we have now this possibility over land and sea to reason with ones and ones. And this project is intended for that. We have another question in the chat, more to the musical side again. There was a question to say, please ask Father Time to talk a little of the influence of jazz musicians on the music of Count Ossie, especially the more avant-garde artists such as John Coltrane, Sun Ra, etc. For example, the famous picture of Duke Ellington with your father, Count Ossie. Any info on this?
Well, I am of the understanding that Duke Ellington played with him at one point. But for Coltrane, that would be more like a Cedric Brooks, because them play tenor sax together. So the tenor sax would be like for Cedric Brooks and Coltrane. I think Coltrane is an idol of Cedric Brooks. In terms of him and the influence that he brings. Because if you listen to some of the track, brother, you can definitely hear Cedric Brooks with some way out note, brother. Where
definitely. With the way
him just gone off on a limb more time, where as some in a jazzy way.
Yeah. Sorry, Father Time, did you say that Cedric Brooks actually played with Coltrane, or just taking influence from Coltrane?
No, he took influence from him. He's an idol of his,
Yes.
I'm not sure based on the chart, because at one point Cedric used to live in America.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if he used to play with him, but when he came to Jamaica, that's when he formed the Mystics.
Mm-hmm.
The Mystics was Joe Rouglas, Samuel Leslie, Cedric Brooks, and Number Robinson was the young trombonist among them.
Mm-hmm.
That's when they merged with Count Ossie and the African drums and becomes the Mystic Revelation of Rastafari. That was like 1969, 1970, 1971.
Mm-hmm.
Because by 1972, 73, we start touring. And then by 73, when we came back, we did the album Grown Nation. By 74, we did the other album, which is called Tales of Mozambique. And then Cedric went along to form Lighter Saba, United Africa, and a couple of other groups. That the last time I saw Cedric, he was in Spain. And he was with the Scatterlights, the Rebirth of the Scatterlights. So I would say his influence comes from Coltrane, but with any surety, and sadly in past, but I'm still in contact with his daughter and things. She live in Florida.
Okay.
Because we have to keep the
links.
The brings them together same way,
Brilliant.
Yeah, because even now, couple of the brethren them we used to play, like the bass drum, my brother Rayo, his son still play the bass drum with me now. Because as I say, my favorite Walter Rodney, anything to do with Walter Rodney is a big influence as well, because he was come from Guyana.
Mm-hmm. Yes, there was a next question in the chat. Did Walter Rodney have anything to do with the early 70s trip to Guyana, since Walter Rodney was from Guyana?
Yeah, man, definitely. Him and Fabs Burnham. Fabs Burnham was the the main man at the time. I don't know if it's prime minister or president that they use over there, but Forbes Burnham was that man. And Walter Rodney, you know, as a youth at the time, I wasn't with the technical aspect of how they got there. But through the grapevine, I know of Walter Rodney and things. And yes, he was definitely a part of the doings of bringing that group to Guyana. You know? And I think we went there for a Curry Festa, yeah?
Right. Let me just say, sorry.
Blessings.
Blessed love.
Blessings. Let me just say that I asked that question, and I ask it because Rodney was expelled from Jamaica, from Mona in 68.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering if the 70s trip had anything to do with him, because by that time he was back in Guyana. And I know that he wrote Groundings with My Brothers after that and all of that. So I was just wondering, because sometimes you have one narrative from academia and another one in the community. So I was wondering if he had anything to do with that trip in the 1970s. And let me just say, start by saying, I'm not a Rastafarian, but I was in Jamaica at Mona in 69, between 69 to 72. So I heard Count Ossie and the Mystic Revelations played then. And I guess I was interested both in the, well, the drum, as young students, the drum pulled us. And just hearing Count Ossie play was a very special thing. So this is why I'm here today, because I'm remembering from back then. And somebody who knew about the reasoning today, because she had heard from me about Count Ossie, she sent me the link. And so because I never forget that, you know, I suppose we were interested in both the commercial, the Kumana, and the churchical and everything. So, and I have the Ground Nation albums from since then. So, you know, just thinking of all of that, as I hear you talk about the 70s trip to Guyana, I say, well, you know, it could be that Rodney returned. Not that I heard anything, but I'm just thinking that his return to Guyana after they kicked him out of UWI might have something to do with that. I'm from Grenada, by the way.
Okay, well, what happened is that I know Forbes Burnham was the prime minister, right? But I'm not sure how the technical aspect of it goes, because I was what? Maybe 15 or 16 at the time. So I didn't know what, but I have heard of his name, and I know that he was from Guyana, so I'm not sure what role he played in that, you know?
Okay.
But speaking of the 70s up by UWI, those were the time that was the strongest time for Rastafarian at that time up by UWI, because the whole of the youth them were that study up there, so at that time was seeking some grounds of Rastafari, or seeking some level of tradition, culture. You know, I'm not sure what is happening up there now, but yeah, man. Give thanks to for being here, and you know, I'm happy that you could have get some of the counters. But we have some other albums where you can check out too, don't?
Yeah, I'm gonna check them out. I'm gonna check them out.
Blessings and love.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Yes, give thanks. Are there any more questions? Right now, I don't see any hands raised. Maybe Raskaimo. Yes, I see Raskaimo. Blessed love, please come forward again.
Love again, my brethren and sistren. Yes.
Yes, I.
Love again.
Yes.
Questions keep popping up even as the reasoning go on, because, you know, one kind of statement leads to another, and you know, so reasoning will go. But I'm wondering, Brother Time, I'm wondering about the Tales of Mozambique album. The fact that it was released in 1974 and given that name. My daughter has been living in Mozambique for the last 10 years doing public health work. And I know that basically the Mozambique Civil War was taking place at this time, before Samora Machel came to full power and independence of the nation. So I'm curious as to why the name Tales of Mozambique came in, because it seems that maybe that could have been something current in Pan-African affairs. Does the eye have an opinion on that? Why it got that name?
Have you listened to the album?
I have the album.
Oh, the album is history.
It's been a while since I've listened to it.
Is the history of is it Vasco da Gama that went round the Cape of Good Hope?
Okay. Give thanks.
Landed in South Africa. He was sick, and they took him in. But while they took him in, he was writing that he came across some petty princes. And what is happening is that they grab people, man, woman, from, babies from people's arm. So all the screaming you're hearing is, no, they were actually taking people, putting them on the ship, and send them on to go to war.
Well,
so
interestingly,
it is the history of Mozambique.
Okay, you've just shown me something. I need to go and listen to the album again and read the liner notes, because
Right.
it turns out I've actually been to the very spot, to the very fort and church, which was the first European building on the continent of Africa that I'm aware of, where they took the Africans to enslave them. So yeah, that was the Vasco, and led from the Vasco da Gama connection there.
You see, that's why it's so happy. I am so happy that I sit and listen to the elders them, because man like Vasco da Gama, I wouldn't have known about him unless someone tell me. Just like this one here when he Mussolini from Italy. If I never had listened to them, I would know about these guys.
Same.
And these guys are culprits where really do some serious damage to Africa.
Truly. Let me ask another question about the chants that are related to repatriation, because I was taking notes here. When you were speaking about the fact that repatriation has been a theme, a concern, a preoccupation always in the heavens of Rastafari, you mentioned 3 chants. Africa, we want to go. Open up the gate, make we repatriate. And Zion is thy father's home.
Yeah.
Now, I know all of those chants, and I'm assuming that those would be what we would call foundational chants. These are chants in the early Rastafari. Traditional.
Yeah.
What about other? Because I know as we've gone on in the last couple of decades, what has happened is Rastafari drummers and chanters are writing their own chants and updating chants. What about chants like, I want to go home to that land where I come from?
Take I back home to that. I wanna go.
I come from.
To that. I wanna go home to that land where I am from.
Traditional chants?
There will be joy, traditional again, in my soul, peace and happiness in my mind. I wanna go home to that land where I am from. Yeah, man.
Okay, so here's another one.
Traditional back to Africa chant, them, man.
Tell me if this is also a traditional one.
Yes, it is traditional.
Well, tell me if this one is.
Okay.
We will get a new name in that land. In that land, that sunny land.
We shall have a new name in that land, in that sunny land. No, I think I'm not sure who wrote that one, but I think it's also traditional, you know. You have any recording of it?
I have it from my own, you know, kind of bingy recording tapes, but it's not easily at hand.
No, but I think it's traditional. You know, nobody can claim them song. You know, them song the traditional.
Okay.
Mm.
And do you know this one? When I yard home.
When I get there.
I yard home.
Traditional again.
Okay.
I will sing and shout when I get home.
Aye. Yeah, man.
Oh,
Very
yeah.
nice.
Yeah, man.
Very nice. So and you've mentioned some of the back and forth when Count Ossie and his group would go to West Kingston and play in places like the Coal Yard or the Dungle. Do you personally have remembrance of Brother Skipper as a drummer?
No, them time they're before me born, you know.
Okay.
About 57, we're talking about 49, 48, 40, 50s.
Okay.
You know, after my mother meet Count Ossie after 51 storm, because when even up until 51, she didn't know of him. So after 51, she met him.
Okay, and there would have been in the 50s, 60s, and even 70s time a very well-known Nyabingi drummer by the name of Pa Shanti. Did you happen to know who Pa Shanti was?
I heard of his name as well, but you know what I mean, I'm an infancy, same way.
Okay, because in a Jamaica Journal article, oh man, I'm having like a senior moment now. I'm trying to remember the Garth White, the music journalist Garth White, writes about he writes about your father's style, the upbeat tempo of his style, contrasting it with Pa Shanti's style, which is the more kind of heartbeat, slower, you know, as you would say, yard style bingy.
Burro drums and what my father does is totally different.
Okay.
The burro drum is far more slow. It's like the heartbeat.
When you touch the burro drums again, what about a figure like Watto King?
Yeah, man, Watto King. He was also influential in my father being who he is today. Watto King, Job. Yeah.
He would have been a burro drummer with brother Job, I think, who would have influenced your father, I think. Yeah. Because when I was doing work with Nyabingi elders about where they got their drums, Watto King was a name that came up. He was someone who actually built drums for some of these other brethren.
He was a maker of the drums.
Yes,
Watto King.
give thanks.
But he was also a very good player.
Indeed, yes.
Yeah, man.
So I would say, and the last thing I would ask, there's always a next thing, but for this moment, the last thing I would ask, we've been talking about Nyabingi music, Nyabingi drumming, but my question is, what meaning did your father attribute to the Nyabingi Ada as a spiritual order? Did your father speak of that as a particular order, or
no, he didn't. Father is a Ardean Rastaman, and he didn't put any label on what he does. His ones and ones nowadays are then put label on what he does. He was a Rastaman who love to play him drums and love music and musicians pan all. You know, it's just him that.
Aye, give thanks.
Yes.
Once again, my brother, one perfect love. And we're giving thanks to Dominik for creating this session, because we know it's been edifying to all concerned. Seeing some of my brethren here, hail out to Russ Adam, Bungo Wisely. Yes, man, all good. Wonderful thing.
I saw someone said something about Ross Michael. Just to tell you this, Ross Michael got influenced by Count Ossie as well. For whoever said something about Ross Michael just now, he was also influenced by Count Ossie. Brethren, it was a pleasure. Unless I could do this again, because I have to pretty much go pick up some youth at school, you know, because it's 2:30.
Yes.
So
yes, give thanks. We are well over time. Give thanks for your time, brother. Time for being with us. There's plenty more questions, of course. Ones come up with, especially on the influence of Count Ossie. Interesting. In one interview, he mentioned also an influence that I didn't hear him mention before, a brethren called Baba. And interestingly, Douglas Mack mentions that his father's name was Baba Mack. Just a quick question on that. Do you know, because Douglas Mack said his father was also a musician. Is that this Baba, or do you know which Baba Count Ossie might have? Because he mentioned Watto King, Brother Joe.
Baba Job. I'm not sure if it's Baba Job I'm talking about, but you have a brethren named Baba. I'm not sure what his functionality was with the group or with Count Ossie, because we're talking about way before my time, you know. So, you know,
Yes,
these brethren come along, you know, them do them thing, because the door was always open, but it's also a revolving door where people come and people go, you know.
Yes, give thanks, Brother Time, for sharing. Maybe a last word to the eye, maybe on the development of Rastafari, what you see in the world, maybe a word sound, whatever you would like to close with, a message that you would pass on to the people out there, whatever it is, for you to wrap up this session. Give thanks and praises. Blessed Lord.
Yeah, man. Blessings, man. The reasoning is so much. It has brought back so much joy to I, in terms of from youth days until the man I is today. So me give thanks for the reasoning. What I would love to have the brethren them do, especially the CRO, continue, a Luther continue. We could see if we can get it in a more organized way. Whosoever, Brother Natty, whosoever you feel like we want a connection with our number, to follow up on any certain thing, you can just share my number with them, and let's just keep the drumming going. You know, we have to chant on Babylon. Babylon have to feel it. You know, at some point, we have to get some level of repatriation or some blessings. With that, I say give thanks, and I give thanks to the reasoning. I give thanks for having I here. And just let Jah be with guide. You know, Jah Jah.